Join former Twins players Troy Hawkins and Glenn Perkins, as well as other local celebrities, for Paddles for a Purpose Pickleball Social on October 13th at Minneapolis Cider Company to help raise funds for Hammer and NER, a local nonprofit that provides housing and services to people with developmental disabilities. Enjoy games, food, live music, and more. Full details, KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
It's festive here at the X. We're technically right next door to the X, correct, Guardsy?
The River Center.
This is the River Center. Now, the green carpet, I recall, a year ago for the opener was upstairs. We're down one level lower.
We outgrew it.
And it got so big, apparently, and there's somewhere between 30,000 and 40,000 fans here lined up along either side of the green carpet. They got signs. They're looking for perhaps signatures. They're looking for photos. They're looking for high five. They're just looking to be a part of the scene. And, of course, if you want to talk about part of the scene, we knew that there was no chance that Russo Radio was going to miss it. And so here you are. Is it emotional for you in front of the green carpet?
Another emotional start to the season.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I remember when it was up there last year, I was thinking how bizarre it was because where the players park, it was actually taking, like you're talking about taking them out of their routine. It was like taking them on a little trek of the premises. Here, it's a little less cumbersome, I think.
A little more logical in that regard? Yeah. Yeah, there's a good crowd here. Opener tonight on the Fan. And so you're going to be with us, I think, for most of this hour. We'll end up with a player or two, it appears. Bill Guerin's going to join us at 5:02 in addition to what else we have planned for the rest of this program. By the way, have you asked, do you think Wild ownership would have any interest in also purchasing the Minnesota Twins?
Oh, yeah, I think definitely. You know, it's funny that you brought that up because even the other day I was talking to Craig Leopold, and every time I talk to him, I mean, literally every time, I reconfirm that he has no plans to sell the team because in today's day and age in the NHL, you know, he's going to make at a minimum 5x on his original investment. I mean, this team is easily worth probably $1.2 billion and more. If the Ottawa Senators are selling for $900 million, this team is, and they basically the Arizona Coyotes moved to Utah for Bill. This team is going to make some money, but he says he's in it for the long haul. This is going to be a family thing for a long, long time. So I don't know. I don't know if he's going to want to get into baseball. He's a hockey fanatic.
Yeah,
he did try to buy the Milwaukee Bucks once. If I
there you go.
Correctly, so.
Interesting.
Yeah, maybe he'll get into the Timberwolves.
Very, very hard to say. Well, we were talking about this a lot. I know Guardsy got going yesterday because of the Lavelle. I think it sounds like the latest. Lavelle has been, God bless him, man. He's a great contributor to the show when he's on, and he's a great contributor to the show when he's not on, when he tweets something that
Justin was just
one of us or both of us going, well, he makes it too easy. But I do think, one thing I've learned about Lavelle is I do think now, impishly, Lavelle does half of those for us, where he knows how to get us going.
He's a troll.
And he likes to do the trolling routine.
Yeah,
so to the extent he succeeds. But nevertheless, I'm sure he'll remind us several more times that the next owners might be just as frugal and just as bothered by the current TV situation when it comes to the regional deal. Let's cover that, by the way. Give us an update.
By the way, my favorite Lavelle bit is when he tells fans to fan better.
You love that, don't you?
I love that.
Yeah.
I actually like, it's like
fan better.
I just start scrolling his Twitter mentions just to see him. He definitely knows how to get him going.
There's no doubt about that. Yeah. So we got one more. Does the Wild have one more year with Bally?
Yes.
Okay. And where are they in this? Because this is every sport. This is a challenge now, the brave new world about where you're going, whether you can even count on the money that you were getting regionally before. Where are we with the Wild in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, basically, as you said, they were contractually obligated. They had no choice. Once it was set that Bally's was going to make their full payment to them this year, which has been set allegedly, that they've gotten 2. Craig Leopold made it clear to us the other day that they had to come back. There was no way out of it like a lot of fans maybe wanted. The reality is that financially, the Wild, even though they want eyeballs on their team, financially they do much, much better when they're going to be on Bally's than any other option, at least currently right now. They're clearly their rights fees are upwards of $20 million, and so you're not getting that when you're over the air, and you're not getting that even on streaming. Plus, you got to produce every game, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars. You got to sell your own ads, all that type of stuff.
Right.
So right now, they're the last year of the deal, and then we'll see where this thing goes with Diamond Sports. They had another option, a fallback plan, whether it was to go over the air on Channel 45 or something like that, and then maybe do a hybrid where they stream. They will have other options, and we'll see what happens after this year. But as far as, if all of a sudden Bally's comes back and says, all right, here's another, 3-year deal.
You could see that they could easily stay with them.
You go with the money sometimes,
right, sure.
and that's a huge chunk of, right now it's $88 million. If you're getting from your local rights, several $1 million in the tens, you're probably taking it. But look, the Wild want to make sure that, and I think we're seeing that more and more in all of sports, is that, you're just better off having the eyeballs on your product rather than maybe getting the money. And right now in Minnesota, there's a lot of people that aren't willing to pay that premium plan or whatever it is going to be on Comcast or Xfinity right now. And the Bally's app has been wonky, and I know they're trying to do improvements on there.
If you had to reduce your preview of the 2024-25 season to a single thing that must improve for the Wild to make a significant jump as a team in the upcoming season, I know there's probably a bunch on the list, but if you had to narrow it to one and said this is the absolute minimum requirement if you want to get better, where do you start?
Yeah, I hate to use the easy fallback of health, but that is why they didn't make the playoffs last year. Yeah, their goaltending wasn't very good, but it comes down to health. When you are paying $14.7 million less than everybody else, you just do not have the depth to really overcome that. And as much as the Wild even think that they've improved their depth this year, Dan, by going out and getting the Travis Boyds and the Devin Shores and the Reese Johnsons and the Ben Gonces and players, Ben Jones and Brendan Gons and all those guys, look, they're not full-time NHL players, or they'd be here right now. So I think that they are much better equipped to, potentially survive short-term injuries than they were last year. But with this organization right now, until they're out of this Parise Suter heck, I think it's going to be always an issue. And by the way, I think you must be getting one of your players if Aaron's lifted.
Faber's on the carpet somewhere.
Oh, okay, good.
So Brock is on his way over at some point.
So I think it's health. Like if they lose Kaprizov and these guys again, it's going to be a long, long year. So I think that's the most important thing, because I truly believe, and I wrote it today in my quote bold predictions, I think that this team is good enough when you look at the talent that they have on the ice right now. If they are healthy, they are a playoff team. If they are ravaged with injuries like last year, I just don't think they are.
It's difficult to believe that they could possibly be as injured as they were a year ago, though. Correct? You say the odds are that's not going to happen again.
You just never know. And obviously, what really hurt them last year was the timing of the injuries. Like where they were on fire when John Hines got here. They won 11 of their first 14 games. They were on the edge, the precipice of getting into that top 8. And then in a row, when they were playing Winnipeg twice in Colorado and all these big teams, Tampa coming. Then they lost Kaprizov and Gustafsson and Zuccarello and Brodin and all of them together. And so a lot of it is timing right now, and that's just what they've got to figure out a way to overcome. I know that they've really worked on their fitness levels this year. A lot of these guys that maybe were, considered out of shape last year have come back looking much, much better. The ones that they've publicized essentially are guys like Ryan Hartman and Philip Gustafsson, even Jesper Wallstedt. All of them look like Gus has clearly dropped some LBs and just looks super young. And I love his camp so far. We'll see if he now can return to form of 2 years ago.
As I said, we should have Faber here in just a couple of minutes. I have to believe too, and it sounds like it's been a big point of emphasis in terms of even the way the preseason's been treated, that they know they can't mess around with the start of the season the way they did a year ago. And that's where, I have some sympathy about the injuries, but that still doesn't explain the way the team started.
Yeah. Obviously, they lost Matt Boldy there in game 2.
Right.
Freddie Goudreau and Jared Spurgeon before the year. But you're right. Look, there's no excuses. Nobody feels bad for you. Columbus Blue Jackets just lost Boone Jenner, their captain, for 5 months in a practice the other day. And they came out today and said there's nobody feeling sorry for us. So you got to just do it. What's unacceptable is the years that this team has gotten off to the last couple years, and they can't afford to win 4 out of the first 19 games like they did last year. You just don't catch up on that, and we saw it. You leave no room for error. They almost caught up, but then they got ravaged by injuries. So they've got to get off to a better start. The schedule is tough to start off. They have the 2 home games,
and then we hit the road for a while.
17 days, 7 games on the road, and that was one of the designs of the really hard camp that they had. And I asked Kirill Kaprizov the other day about how a lot of his teammates said this is the hardest camp that they've ever been part of, and he just rolled their eyes and he's like, tell him to go to Russia. And then he explained to me, he explained to me what it's like at a KHL training camp. First of all, it's a month and a half, not 18 days. And you show up in the morning, you go for a run, you go on the ice, then you eat breakfast, then you go on the ice, then you work out, then you have lunch, then you go back on the ice. It's hours upon hours upon hours. So, but they had a really hard camp. I think John Hines tried to push them to the limit. And I really like their camp. Now, what does that mean? Look, we all know that the preseason is, it's always the most optimistic that you've ever been. Nobody's ever lost a game yet. Everybody thinks they're a contender.
Yeah.
But, and so you never have any predictions. I've thought they've had good camps before, but this one I just really feel like John did a really quality job getting them ready for what's going to be a tough start. And I think a lot of it has to do with getting their fitness level up where they're going to be able to handle the ups and downs of what's going to come here on the first 9 games this season, 7 in a row on the road.
You love that the opener's against Dean. And then we're going to talk in more detail about your story. You had some great stuff today about how they ran into each other across the pond in Europe, which was great. But it almost seems unfair to hand you that juicy an angle on day one.
Yeah, you're right. Let's put it this way: when the calendar came out, and then on July 23rd he was hired as the Blue Jackets coach. I'm like, well, I texted my editor. I'm like, I know what I'm writing for opening night. And then Dean totally cooperated with some incredible quotes today and things like that. So one player that definitely thrived under Dean Evison is this guy, Brock Faber.
Brock Faber has approached the podium. We'll get him set up with a headset,
Mr. GQ,
and a microphone as well.
Wow, look at that outfit.
Oh, thank you.
I was hoping that you were going to wear the jacket that you wore at the NHL Awards.
I was. That'll come back soon, but I don't have many suits, so the rotation's small.
Would you classify yourself as a bit of a clothes horse, or are you evolving into one? Would you say?
I'd say I'm still evolving. To say the least, for sure.
That's okay. We were just talking, Russo and I, about, and he, reminding us that everybody looks or feels unbeatable in preseason or before the season starts, and everybody wants to believe it's full speed ahead.
Right.
But what gives you a sense that you guys can recover from what was on several levels, collectively, not individually for you, but collectively, a very difficult and frustrating season?
Yeah, I think it's injuries definitely had played a part in that. I think as a team we lacked in some areas, and I think we're coming to this camp confident and healthy, and we're looking forward to tonight. So,
Raka, you obviously had an incredible rookie year. Now it's your second year here, and just correct me if I'm wrong, but watching you on the ice, you look as confident as you've ever looked. Even just more so than last year when all your teammates were kind of warning us that this was about to happen last year. What are your thoughts coming into this year? How much more confidence do you bring into the season?
Yeah, I'm most definitely confident this year. I'm healthy. I feel good, and I think you're right. I think there's, in preseason you maybe get a few points and you score a couple times and I think for me it's just trying to stay steady in my game and what I do to help this team win, and I feel like the rest will come. So just trying to play as confident, like you said, as I can, and help this team as much as I can. But yeah, I feel good. I feel confident. I feel healthy. So.
What did you learn? Well, I mean, obviously, it was a wildly successful season for you as a rookie, so it wasn't too big for you. The stage was not too big for you, obviously. What did you learn though last year that you can apply? Or maybe even what's the biggest surprise about the league as prepared as you tried to be to start?
Right. I think I learned a whole lot last year. The speed of the game is definitely, especially against those top lines and best players, how hard it is to kill a penalty. What it takes on a nightly basis. I think for me, it's taking care of my body even more and as good as I can throughout the year to stay at as close to 100% as I can. And I think I could go on and on about the things I've learned on ice, but
sure.
I'd be talking till I have to tie my skates. So I think for me mostly it's off the ice how I need to take care of my body to help my on ice game. So
I bet the most refreshing thing about today starting is that now we don't have to talk about last year anymore. I mean, not just individually,
right.
But as a team, I'm
For
sure that you guys are just tired of that storyline. Now you got Jared Spurgeon back healthy. You got Marcus Foligno back healthy. Everybody seems to be healthy. How much more confidence does that give you going into a season where last year, before game one, you didn't even have your captain?
Yeah, it's huge. It's like you said, it's not. I guess it's not always a bad thing to hear all the noise about our last year and kind of have that as motivation going into this year. I think that helped a lot of us, myself included. And then with Spurge back, it's just a different vibe in the room. It's a different. It feels like we're just such a different team when he's in our lineup, as you guys know from watching. He's our leader. He's our captain. There's a reason that it hurts us so much when he's out. So having him back, I think the whole lineup feeds from it top to bottom.
It's no secret. Russo and I were just talking about this, that part of what hurt last year was the start of the season, which was not very good. You already had some injuries early, but you guys, it was difficult, I think, for you to ever to completely recover from where the season started. I get the sense from what he's written and what some of the players have said that there has been an up-the-ante sort of urgency from the start of training camp with the knowledge that you guys can't afford to start that slow again. Have you sensed that? What's the message you've received in that regard?
For sure. It was a hard training camp. I think we worked our butts off this training camp, and again, you hear all the noise in the off season, and you miss the playoffs. Guys have down years, disappointing nights, whatever it is. So, the training camp was good for us, and we're just ready to play game one.
You got one more quickie, Russo?
I wanted to ask you, what will opening face-off be like tonight after that tribute? I know a lot of you guys knew Johnny Gaudreau. I keep on thinking about what Matt Boldy's going to be like during this because he idolized Matt, Gaudreau growing up, play with him in the most recent World Championship. How hard will it be to sort of, watch that and then immediately get into battle?
Yeah, it puts it all into perspective. Absolutely. It's still a game. It's still every single time you get to step on the ice is an opportunity. Every time you get to see your family is an opportunity to be grateful for. And I think it's going to be hard. It's going to be deep, especially on that side. They lost a incredible teammate, leader, player, and so much more over there. So, it's hard, absolutely, and it's going to be deep. But again, I think it puts life in perspective a little bit for a lot of us. So.
Thanks for giving us the time. Much appreciated.
Thanks,
Good luck in this season.
Appreciate it.
Faber, kind enough to join us here along the green carpet. We've got more players to come. Might as well go. We can keep going out to about 27, and then we'll pause at the bottom of the hour. Russo, kind enough to join us as well. Bill Guerin will be with us in the 5 o'clock hour. My sources say you might have run into Kaprizov's man, his money man, his agent. Is that? Can you confirm or deny?
Yeah, I ran into Kaprizov and his agent yesterday. Last night at Portazana. Went there for a birthday dinner for a friend of mine, And I'll be honest, I didn't know that Bill Guerin knew that, and Bill came right up to me this morning. He goes, "I hear you were stalking Kirill last night." I'm like, I look at him, like, how do you know that? He goes, I got my sources, and then I find out that his agent, Theophanis, texted Bill right away that I was hovering.
Squealed on him, huh? Or on you.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they were talking like, all right. But the one thing I did learn about that is that Theophanis did meet with the Wild yesterday in their offices. And so, look, you can't sign a contract till July 1, but you could certainly start talking about a contract. And I think that's a great thing because, as we know, the Wild haven't had the greatest, negotiations in the past with Kirill. And, obviously it was tough to get him here for 5 years. And then his last contract went down. By the way, it's so funny. I was thinking about that last night. The Wild really got down to the nitty-gritty to get him on the 5-year, $45 million deal. And the reason why, if you remember, was because they wanted an 8-year deal at well more than that. And I bet deep down right now, Bill Guerin's like, man, I wish I had signed him to that 8-year, $80 million deal. So, obviously things, who knew that Kirill was going to be like this? You just didn't know. After 55 games, it's such a small sample size. To give him 8 years at 10 was a tough commitment, or probably well more than that if they got him at 5 at 9. So I think it's a good thing that they're starting those conversations. Again, I don't know if he was in the office to talk contracts, but I don't think he came in the office to just ask how Bill's life is going. I think that we'd be foolish to think that Kirill in the future didn't come up in those conversations yesterday.
Well, it's interesting. We had Louis on yesterday. And Louis is an ex-GM. When I asked him about whether, that's the elephant in the room, that there's always going to be this question lurking, is that fair? I'm assuming as a former GM, he was going to be, people make too big a deal of that, etc. But no, Louis confirmed it. He said, there's no denying it. He said that's a story that this team knows it has to deal with. The organization knows it has to deal with. Nobody should run from it because it's just a fact.
Yeah, and look, I appreciate and respect the fans. Without them, I wouldn't have a job to do. But I already sense out there that fans think that this is an overblown subject. It's not. When the organization is audibly talking about it,
right?
When 2 years in a row, Craig Leopold is voicing concern in my article that with Joe Smith that we wrote 2 days ago, Craig Leopold says, "Am I convinced that we're going to get it done?" No. So, the reality is that they think that this is a place that they've got to prove to him that they can win. There's no doubt they're going to offer him the largest contract just based on the fact that they're going to be able to offer him more term than anybody else. But when you have a star player like this, it's just always going to be a concern until he signs on the dotted line. And this isn't just a conditioned Minnesota thing. This is any superstar that's available, that's free in any sport. But especially, we saw it in Boston with Pasternak. We just saw it in Edmonton with Draisaitl. We saw it in Vancouver with Pettersson. This is what happens because it's so few and far between that a superstar gets free on the open market that that 31 other teams that are at least eyeballing that in 2 years, hey, we can go after that guy and that could elevate our status immediately. And so until you get it done, it's going to be a storyline. So I think that they've got to figure out a way to really show him not just the love, because money, he's going to get that anywhere. And he knows that the Wild are going to offer him a contract starting at 13 next year, maybe more. But you have to show him that there is a future plan to win here, because if he, the one thing that Craig Leopold did in our story the other day is for the first time he verbalized that they are actually in a 5-year plan. This is year 2 of it, to actually deliver a cup in his eyes in 5 years. That this is what they're doing, that they realize that they're not serious contenders yet. But we all know that if Kirill Kaprizov goes elsewhere, that 5-year plan just absolutely gets blown up. Yeah. So he's got them, it is imperative that the one thing I keep on saying that I think that fans just sometimes don't think about is this is not a young man. He's 27. Right now he's at his peak. Usually when you're 5 years in a league in today's NHL, you're 23 years old. Look at guys like Boldy and those type of players. This is 27-year-old. By the time that he signs that extension, he's going to be 29 years old. An 8-year deal, which is probably going to be his last big contract of his career, takes him to 37. He needs to know that he is going to have a chance to win cups in that window. And so I think that we can't, expound on it enough, that the Wild have to show him that they are serious in building a team around him that's going to have a chance to win not just one cup, but multiple ones.
Bottom of the hour pause. Russo Radio will stay with us until 5. Guerin then. At least one more play. We expect to chat with Jared Spurgeon between now and 5 o'clock as well. We are at the X along the green carpet. That's the noise in the background. Fans everywhere greeting players as they head into the locker room for the season opener. Also tonight right here on The Fan. Back in just a minute.
Before we go, the Fan and Two Men and a Jug Truck want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand at the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com and enter the keyword credit for this hour. Keyword credit. KFAN.com, keyword credit. Let your voice be heard. Tune in to Vikings Fan Line following every Vikings game presented by the Minnesota Lottery. Listen in right here on KFAN or anywhere on the free iHeartRadio app.
Russo Radio is with us. We are at the X for the Minnesota Wild season opener. We expect a brief visit with Jared Spurgeon between now and the top of the hour. Bill Guerin is confirmed for the at least the first half hour of the 5 o'clock hour of the show from our location. Of course, you can hear all the action on the season opener tonight right here on The Fan. The first game of the WNBA Finals on the KFAN Plus tonight. KFAN Plus tonight against the New York Liberty. So we got pretty much everything covered on one of our cavalcade of stations. That's the kind of empire we are. Russo, I did love the quote. You mentioned that there were some good pithy lines from Dean Evison today, but the quote you had in your piece yesterday that I enjoyed the most was his willingness to say, yeah, it does matter to me that this is who we're playing, and I know what I'm supposed to say, which is, it's just another game, or we're past that, and it's the end, that's a different story, it's a different time. No, Evison is diving directly into the deep end of the pool when it comes to how much he is into the fact that his first game back as head coach is against the team that fired him.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And he doesn't blame anybody for it, but he doesn't like it and doesn't think it should have happened. And so for him to ironically, wind up or coincidentally get his first game as Columbus's coach back here in Minnesota, it's a pretty cool storyline, as you mentioned. And he did say it's literally BS is what actually was the quote they cut out of my story. But it's awesome. His mom's here. His wife is here. He went last night to La Grolla, which his best buddy owns. And so that was pretty cool. He had the whole coaching staff out there. And what was really neat is that then in 2 days, Bob Woods, who was fired with him, comes in as the assistant coach with Seattle. So Bob Woods' wife flew in this morning and was having brunch with Dean's wife. So, what are the chances? They're back in their old stomping ground. So, it was a fun story to write. He one of my favorite anecdotes from the story, Dan, is that he ran into Bill Guerin in Prague this May. Bill is going to be the GM of the Four Nations and the Olympics, and he was having dinner at a patio in the Old Town Square there with Mike Sullivan, who's going to coach both those teams. Dean's there with his whole family because he's assistant coach for Team Canada. Son looks up and says, "There's Billy." And as he's creeping up behind Billy to surprise him, he overhears him telling Mike Sullivan why you fired Dean. And he goes, "Well, if you didn't fire your effing coach, you would have made the playoffs." And so, Billy loved it, gave him a big bear hug. He goes up to his mom. Mom didn't want to hug him. He asked, "Please just hug me." He's like, "Just this one time." And then the mom hugs him and then proceeds to punch him in the nether region. So it's a pretty funny story.
That was literal?
Yes. She really
punched him. Billy about that at 5 o'clock hour.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really cool.
Man, that's cold.
Yep. The other really touching part of the story, and this is where the story got a little difficult to write, and I don't have John Krasinski's writing chops, but
I thought it was a very well-written story today.
But in the middle, I get into the Johnny Gaudreau and how he found out that Johnny died, and it turns out that nobody knew this other than obviously people, the Columbus GM. But a couple weeks before Johnny died, he said to Don Waddell, the Columbus GM, "There's one player I'd like to meet with, and that's Johnny Gaudreau." He says, "We'll get on a plane and go to him." And he calls up Johnny. He flies to Philadelphia, has lunch with him. It was supposed to be a quick chat, and they spent 2 hours talking about hockey and family and everything. And so he left that feeling so fantastic that Johnny was going to be, part of this team and part of his, him, in his eyes, a Kirill Kaprizov type. And then, the unfairness, obviously, of the just incredible tragedy that happened to Johnny and his brother.
So to this point, in your view, the greatest difference in coaching style between Dean and the current head coach of your Minnesota Wild is what?
It's hard for me to say because as long as I've covered this team, and there's Kaprizov, by the way, I'm still a layman from an X's and O's standpoint. I do think that they're much more aggressive in their own end. They're much more aggressive on the PK. In terms of offensive style, Dean was grind them, get in on the forecheck, and go hard at work. Where I think John likes a little more plays. Everything's based on talent. But again, the reality is that X's and O's in this sport is
overrated.
It's not that it's overrated. It's that everybody plays virtually the same, especially in their own zone. There's only a couple teams that play, say, man and things like that, and those teams actually sometimes struggle dramatically. And so the Wild in their own end, they're trying to make some subtle tweaks. Their power play, I think, has been dynamic under John Hynes for the most part, and so we'll see if it continues. But very different styles in terms of coaching. John is a career coach, where Dean was a hockey player, and I think goes more on the way that his MO was as a player. I covered Dean as a player, not personally, but I covered him when he played in the league, and he was a hard-nosed guy. And what was really impressive about Dean's style is that when he was in juniors, he was one of the best Western Hockey League players ever. But then he gets to the Hartford Whalers, and he looks in front of him, and he's got Ron Francis, and he looks second, and he's got Ray Ferraro, and he's like, you know what, if I'm going to play in this league, I better turn myself into a face-off winning checker, and he became one of the top third-line guys for that team, and then obviously went on to Dallas and did the same thing. So I think he kind of coaches on instinct and sort of his mentality of playing with fire and passion and things like that, where John's more, really
analytical.
Yep.
Dean more emotional then?
Yes,
across
definitely.
the board.
I mean, you see it on the overtime wins and things like that.
Yeah.
He's got fire in him. One of the stories that and one of the stories that just makes me laugh that just popped in my head is last year. Dean for a long time would joke with me that his family didn't like me, and all of a sudden I didn't know this, but his son and his mom and I think one of his daughters was here at practice. All of a sudden, Dean comes off the ice in the middle of practice. It was kind of awkward. And all of a sudden he grabs me and he walks me right over to his son. He goes, "Hey, here's my son Bryce. He wants to punch you in the face." And then he left. So there's Dean Evison for you.
Well, at least not in the nether regions.
Yeah,
I guess
no,
it's better in the face than that as well.
I don't think I could take a punch from anybody, let alone from one of the Evison.
Well, it probably broke the ice, though, right? It kind of broke all the tension.
It was kind of nice. It really did.
Yeah.
I wound up liking his son a lot. So.
Let's do this. Let's get one more quick pause in. We do hope to get a minute or two with Jared Spurgeon before the top of the hour. Russo Radio is kind enough to join us for this whole hour as we talk Minnesota Wild hockey and players. We'll get to a couple of other things with him as well. Prepare for the general manager of the club, Bill Guerin, just past 5 o'clock. Back in a minute here on The Fan. Lucky here. We thought we weren't going to get him, but we squeezed him in. Jared Spurgeon kind enough to join us here in our final minutes with Russo. Thanks for stopping by to see us. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
How, it may be the obvious question, but given the way last season ended for you, how eager are you to just go and play hockey?
Yeah, a lot of questions, all that stuff. So I'm excited to get back out there and play in front of these awesome fans.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be the most tiresome thing from everybody, not just press, from everybody. How you feeling? I'm sure that you just want to, anxiously get into game one and then get this thing going.
Yeah, a lot of rehab, a lot of training throughout, and obviously you see the turnout here walking in, so it's pretty awesome for us. But we just want to get this season going and get going on the right foot.
And what do you want to see from this team collectively this season? What's the key in your mind? Because a lot of people think you being healthy is a big part of the key, but beyond that, what do you want to see from the get-go from this team as a group?
I think the consistency throughout our game from one line to another. Every single night you know what you're getting, and as a teammate and as a fan, you're going to know what you're getting. So for us, that's a huge thing with the depth we have up front and on the back end and in net as well. So that consistency is huge for us.
Jared, obviously preseason is preseason, means nothing, doesn't often translate into the regular season, but your special teams were excellent throughout the preseason. Your power play was 53%, was ridiculous, and your penalty kill, which I think all of us are really eyeballing, was much, much improved over last year. I know that you were only part of the team's 16 games last year, but what are some of the subtle changes that fans can expect on the PK that are going to see a drastic improvement this year?
Yeah, I think just rules, and the rules that we have throughout it is just a bit more clear, and the aggressiveness that we have coming into the zone will help that out as well. But at the same time, we've been going over it every day throughout camp since day one. So there's a lot of little tweaks throughout that we have going on, and can't give you all our secrets.
At your best, again, healthy, ready to go, what do you think you bring? Where can you contribute? And don't be modest.
No. Hopefully a puck-moving defenseman back there that can be a calming presence for the team. So we have a great team in front of us, and we're all going to have to work together to get this thing done.
Wearing the C last year, you are the captain, but it's hard when you're not in the battle with them every single night. How much has that been sort of something you've been craving to get back to put on that C and to really lead this team? Yeah,
to be able to be in there and actually be in the games and in intermissions and just talk about what we see and sort of correct things as we go. Obviously, when you're up top, you can't do that. So to be able to, for those 2 games at the end of exhibition has been awesome, but we're looking forward to the regular season here.
Last item real quick, and we do appreciate the time. What did you think? What do you think you missed the most about being out there?
Everything. It was tough to watch from up top. Obviously, just watching, especially those good moments of the team when you see them celebrating together. You're not really a part of that, and that definitely was tough.
Do you think your wife's looking forward to going on a 7-game road trip finally? Get out of the house?
You'll have to ask her. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks for the time.
See you, Jared.
Much appreciated. Jared Spurgeon, kind enough to join us as well. We are at the X. Is this the second year, Guardsy?
Yep.
I'm looking at Russo saying Guardsy for the green carpet. A lot more elaborate than last year, correct?
No, much better operation. I think fans are loving it. So
they seem to. Yeah, it's a good opportunity.
It's a really cool event.
Well done.
The funniest thing that just happened was Yakov Trenin. Nobody seemed to know him.
Right.
And just walked by everybody. Their new free
Smart man.
pickup. So
he didn't hesitate. Like, hey, anybody want an autograph or anything? He said, well, no, if nobody. Oh, look at this. Look at this. Guerin, he's in a hurry, apparently.
Yeah,
He got nothing to do at this point. Whatever is going to happen this season, it's already happening. There's nothing else you can do at this point.
Are you guys almost done?
Can't you give Russo as much? By the way, I heard you're bitter with him.
Why?
Well, I should narrow that down. Again, this time, you're bitter with Russo for a specific reason, that he's stalking your superstar player.
Yeah.
What's that all about?
I'm not bitter. I'd be worried if he wasn't.
That's true.
I think the big thing is that I always know where these players go on nights off, so I just have dinner there every night and hope I run into one of them.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Well, how did you know? You must have pretty good sources yourself then, because you texted, because Russo tells me he gets a text from you basically saying, what are you doing with my guy?
No, he came this morning. He comes up, I heard you were stalking the girl last night.
All right.
I'm like, what?
You know what's funny? When I was a player, I couldn't understand how the general manager of the team knew what time I got home at night, where I ate dinner, all this stuff. Now I know.
Now you know.
Now I know.
So are these like
Mike's the hardest working guy in hockey.
Well, there's no question.
I will give Mike that.
Yeah.
And
that's why you can't really get mad at him. I mean, you can, but you know. So are they hired moles? I mean, do you have to hire? Is there a subset of people that, without naming anybody? Yeah, that's the case. We're going to have plenty of time with Bill Guerin here. So you got any final questions before the season opener, Russo? Because you're wrapping it up at 5.
No, I mean, the one thing we could ask Bill, I mean, you got to be just excited for opening night just so we all stop talking about last year. You know, that's got to be the most refreshing thing, is that it's just become this narrative last year. Now, today is game 1. Last year is over with, and it's just get on and get going and have a good start to the season.
You know what, I was just thinking, I think this is my 33rd opening night. And leading up to opening night, it's always about last year, because that's all there is to talk about, really. You guys are just doing your jobs. There's stories from last year. But then, we create new stories as we go along this year. I have no problem with that. You know me, Mike. I'm pretty easygoing. Too.
Well, occasionally. You have your moments.
I have my moments. I'm passionate about certain things, but I try to understand your job as best I can, and you're just doing your job, and part of that is.
Well,
what happened?
Here's the beauty of it.
Where are we going from here?
Well, that's it. That's what I've always said is, if I'm running a team, general managing, coaching, whatever, I tell the players, look, if you're annoyed by whatever's been written, same old narratives, and feel like it's too predictable, and people are assuming that nothing really is going to change, the players and teams always have the last word. That, to me, is the beauty of any new season, is they get to tell the story.
Yes.
No matter what's been written up until then, they can change it. Look at the Vikings.
Yes.
They come into this season, basically, I'm in the group thinking maybe 7-10. I don't know, maybe 8 victories. They're in a transitional year, and the season's not over, but they're sitting there at 5-0.
They're dynamite.
One of the stories of the season for the National Football League.
Yes. The players have the control, perform at a certain level, and you won't have to deal with this stuff.
Exactly.
But on the biggest mistake a player can do is to take it personally and go against you guys without understanding what your job really is. You're doing your job. I always encourage younger players, when I played, don't get mad at them. Get to know them. Like spend a little time with Mike Russo and get to know him, because he's a good guy. He works hard. He's doing his job. And Dan and Mike, I know this. I know you guys want us to win. I know you guys want the Vikings.
It's a better story.
I know it's
100.
And you love this town. You love this market. And I know you guys want us to be successful. But you have to write the truth.
Yeah. And, what's funny is, you say that about young kids. Like last year, a great example is Matt Zuccarello was ticked at me about something that at the end of the year, he asked the PR staff, hey, can you set up a meeting with Russo and me? And he and I sat down for a half hour. It was the calmest, most professional conversation. And it just, and it actually, it really taught me a lesson on how sometimes you think you're tweeting into the ether, but the reality is it actually gets into that locker room. And
Sure.
He was ticked about something, and we talked it out, and it's already repaired our relationship coming into this year.
It makes it stronger. And how many, honestly, we've had a couple, I don't want to say blow-ups. We've gone at each other
moments,
but I feel like that strengthens our relationship. Mike, you and I are in constant communication, and I think it's important because when you write your stuff, I know you're doing your job. I know you are not taking out personally on me.
No.
And when I disagree with something that you write, I can talk to you.
Yep.
Well, if you want to think of it more cynically, I would also suggest, to me, never obviously been a general manager, I've never been in that chair, but I always felt if I were a media coach and had a chance to deal with GMs, I'd say there's one real good reason above all we've talked about for you to nurture the relationship. Get to the point where you can give background information that person can use, so whatever your thinking is, they now have an idea. They still might 100%. Hammer you, but they give any of you, I was back in my newspaper days, the same thing, where that's information I can use, where I might have been ready to criticize. I go, oh, wait a minute, but this is interesting. This might be a reason they went down the road they did. There's every reason to me for GMs to try to carve out those kinds of relationships rather than, no, it's us versus them, because I think it could also serve your purposes.
It could, yeah. 100. I agree with you 100%, and I don't want to see you guys reporting on the wrong things either. You guys are too. Right. I'll use the word legendary. Legendary members of the media. But you know what? If you got it wrong, I'm going to tell you got it wrong.
That's it.
And you know what? It doesn't have to be publicly or anything like that, but I can give you background on what's going on, and that's the relationship. But I also think that's better for, the people that listen to you, the people that read your 100%. Articles. It's more accurate. It's more what the real story is. You're not guessing.
We actually, I won't say what it was about, but we actually a couple of years ago had a phone call where you called me up and you said, Mike, you keep on writing this thing, and I'm just telling you that when something else happens, you're going to make us both look like a fool because what you keep on writing, and it was more like that type of. It wasn't that you were giving me a scoop; you were just trying to, you might want to stop telling our Wild fans this.
You were going down the wrong path,
right?
Yeah, and you know what? But that's that's what good relationships do in this business. Because, neither of us want to look like a fool.
That's for sure.
That's tough for me.
We need him to take a break at the top of the hour. You're welcome to stay, or you can go. This is fun. I love this.
I invaded your...
No.
This is all good.
Yeah, no. It was good talking
Russo,
to you, Dan.
thanks as
Great
always.
seeing you, Billy. Good luck tonight.
Thank you.
And we'll
Thanks,
take
Mike.
the top of the hour pause. We have plenty of time left with the Wild general manager, who started a little bit earlier today. We're at the X, really outside the X. Green carpet, they're calling it, for the second straight year. Fans given the chance to mingle with players a little bit on their way into the locker room for tonight's season opener. All of the action right here on the Fan. Back in just a couple minutes with the Wild GM.